A Dozen Daisies for Raizy, a Shavuot story by Rebecca Klempner. Raizy peeked into a bucket of roses. She breathed in the sweet smell of lilacs. She carefully stroked the waxy petal of a tulip. Safta, said Raizy, I wish I could bring all these flowers home for Shavuot. Raizy Safta laughed. I wish you could too. It's so hard to choose. Just then Raizy spotted a sign. Fresh daisies. Take home a dozen today. The colorful petals with golden centers looked cheerful and friendly. Raizy poked around in her little plastic purse. Yes, she'd saved enough. Turning to the florist, she asked, May I have these, please? Smiling, the florist pulled out 12 daisies and tied them with a yellow satin bow. A dozen daisies for Raizy. Raizy paid and picked up her flowers. They're all mine, she thought. Raizy stopped for a moment. She imagined her daisies blooming all over Har Sinai in honor of Hashem giving us the Torah. Let's go, said Safta. She held out her hand. Together she and Raizy stepped out of the flower shop. Oh, look, said Raizy. There's Naomi. She's a new girl in my class. And that must be her mother. Hi, Naomi, Raizy called. But the new girl just stared down at her shoes. What's wrong, Naomi? You look so sad. Naomi sighed. In my old neighborhood, my Abba used to invite all his friends to a big party at our house after they learned to get the Torah together all night long. I would prepare different kinds of cheesecakes with my mother, and my friends would come over to help. Since we're new in town, we don't know many people. Shavuot won't be the same this year. My Abba makes a big party too, said Raizy. Everyone is hungry after staying up all night. Hey, why don't you come to help out at our party this year? It will be so much fun. Naomi's mother said, We'd love to, and then she added, Are those your Shavuot flowers, Raizy? They are so beautiful. Raizy thought about her daisies. If they belonged to her, then they were hers to share. Raizy plucked 2 daisies out of the bunch and handed them to a very surprised Naomi. Thanks a lot, Raizy. Chag Sameach. Now there were 10 daisies for Raizy. Together, Safta and Raizy continued on their way. A few moments later, they met Mrs. Schwartz, who was carrying a bag of groceries. Raizy noticed a box of frozen cheese blintzes sticking out of the top. Hi, Mrs. Schwartz, said Raizy. I see you're going to eat blintzes on Shavuot. Oh, yes, said the elderly lady. Usually I make my own, but this year my grandchildren are going to spend Shavuot with their other grandmother. So I bought this little box of blintzes just for me, she sighed. Raizy looked up at Safta, who nodded and smiled. Well, said Raizy, my Ima is looking for some Shavuot guests. Will you come and eat blintzes at our house? Why, aren't you sweet, said Mrs. Schwartz. I think I will. Then Raizy remembered her flowers. She pulled 2 daisies out of her bouquet and handed them to a very happy Mrs. Schwartz. Thank you, Raizy. Chag Sameach. Now there were 8 daisies for Raizy. They were almost home when someone called out, Hello, Raizy. What lovely flowers. Raizy looked up to see her neighbor, Mrs. Mizrahi, sitting on the front porch. She held 2 smiling babies in her lap. Raizy lifted her flowers so the babies could see them better. How are Ruti and Boaz? She asked. Baruch Hashem, getting bigger every day, said their mother. But now that the twins are walking, it's much harder to watch both of them at once. I don't know how I'm going to manage to hear the 10 Commandments on Shavuot in the Beit Knesset. I know my mother would let me help you, said Raizy. I love taking care of babies. If I hold one and you hold the other, we can all hear the 10 Commandments. You would do that for me, said Mrs. Mizrahi. Raizy, you're a wonderful neighbor. Raizy chose 2 of the prettiest daisies and handed them to a grateful Mrs. Mizrahi. Thank you, Raizy. Chag Sameach. Now there were 6 daisies for Raizy. As soon as Raizy and Safta came home, Raizy ran into the kitchen to show her mother the flowers. Ima, look at my daisies! Aren't they beautiful? And guess what? A new girl in my class is coming to help us at our party. Mrs. Schwartz is eating blintzes with us tomorrow, and Mrs. Mizrahi wants me to watch the twins with her in the Beit Knesset. How exciting, Raizy! Now let's put your flowers in some water so they'll stay fresh. Raizy placed her 6 daisies in a little glass vase with some water. Just then her brother Yaakov strolled into the kitchen. He looked at the vase in surprise. 6 flowers? That's all you bought? Raizy didn't know what to answer. She loved her bouquet even if it was a bit small. She thought about where her other daisies might be right now. Then Safta smiled at Yaakov and said, I have a secret to tell you. This may look like a bouquet of flowers, but this is really your sister's bouquet of mitzvot. It's half as big as it started, but it's twice as beautiful.